People have been making music for a long time, with sticks and with skins, with bows and with strings. Our need to create has not changed, but technology has continued to evolve. Technology has just taken a giant leap forward. Hello, I'm Roger Linn, and this is the MPC60 MIDI Production Center, created by myself and Akai Professional. In the next 60 minutes, I'm going to introduce you to this new piece of technology. First of all, what is a MIDI Production Center? Basically, it's a drum sampler, a MIDI sequencer, into one portable console. With the additions, you have all the basic functions of a MIDI production studio, allowing you to compose complex songs containing up to 99 tracks of drum and synthesizer parts. MPC6 control unit for your MIDI production studio. Before we begin, I'd like to give you an outline of how this video manual is organized. My intent here is not to replace the owner's manual, but rather to do what you can't do in a written manual, to give a live demonstration of using the machine. Even 1 hour is not enough time to adequately demonstrate all the many features in this machine, so I won't be spending too much time on the lesser used details. However, this shouldn't be a problem because once you understand the basics of operation, the rest is pretty easy to figure out. This video will be divided into sections which loosely follow the sections of the written manual. We'll start off with Section 2, the basics, which loosely corresponds to Section 2 of the same name in your manual. In this section, you'll learn how to hook up your MPC60 and some of the basic functions, such as entering data, playing the drums, and playing the preset sequences. The first thing you're going to learn about is how to hook up your MPC60. First, plug in the power. Make sure it has a good, solid connection to the power socket, because if power is accidentally removed during operation, all memory will be lost. Next, connect 2 cables from the left and right stereo out jacks to 2 inputs on your mixer or amplifier. If you use a mixer, pan the 2 signals left and right. If you're going to be creating keyboard sequences, you'll need to connect the MIDI ports to a MIDI keyboard and synthesizers. For this demonstration, I'll be using an Akai MX73 master keyboard to record sequences, and 2 Akai S900 samplers as sound sources. So in this system, I've connected the MIDI out of the MX73 to the MIDI in number 1 of the MPC60, and the MIDI out number 1 of the MPC60 to the MIDI in of the first S900. Then I connected the MIDI through of the first S900 to the MIDI in of the second S900. This type of connection is called daisy chaining. On the back of the MPC60 are 4 independent MIDI output ports, but for now I'm only using MIDI output number 1. To learn how to use the other 3 MIDI output ports, read Section 9 of your owner's manual, MIDI functions. There are other connections on the rear panel, such as the foot switches, tape sync, the echo send and returns, and the individual mix outputs. These will be explained in further sections of the video manual. Now that we're hooked up, let's turn it on. First, I'll insert the disc labeled Studio Drum Set and Preset Sequences into the disk drive. Now, I turn the rear panel power switch to the on position. The MPC60 is now loading the drum sounds and the preset demo sequences from the disk, and it'll take about 1.5 minutes to do this. Just like every other sampler or high-capacity sequencer, you'll need to reload the drum sounds and sequences every time you turn the power on. Now, in this case, we loaded the disc containing what we call the studio drum set. However, if you want a more ambient, live-sounding drum set, insert the Rock Drum Set and Preset Sequences disc before powering up. Once the disc is finished loading, the LCD display switches to this display called the Play Record screen. This screen is displayed while all playing and recording of sequences is done, and is the main operating screen of the MPC60. By the way, if you ever get confused and want to return to this screen, press the Main Screen key. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to enter data and change settings on the MPC60, using the cursor keys, the data control, the plus and minus keys, and the numeric keypad. First, notice that there is a small blinking block in the upper left corner of the LCD screen. This is called the cursor. Press the 4 cursor keys, up, down, left, and right. The cursor moves in that direction. Notice that it doesn't move one character at a time, but rather skips groups of characters, landing only in specific locations. These locations are called data fields. Most data fields have 2 parts, a field name and the data for that field, separated by a colon. For example, the cursor is now located in the upper left corner of the Play Record screen, in a data field labeled SQNC. This is an abbreviation for sequence, and this is the data field used to indicate the sequence number which is currently active. This field currently contains a 1, indicating that the MPC60 is standing ready to play sequence number 1 of its 99 sequences. To change the value of this field, use the data control. As you rotate the data control, you can feel notches. Turning the control one notch to the right adds a 1 to the sequence number. Turning it to the left subtracts a 1 from the sequence number. I could also use the plus and minus keys. Pressing the plus key has the same effect as turning the data control one notch to the right. It adds a 1 to the field contents. Pressing the minus key has the same effect as turning the control one notch to the left. It subtracts a 1. There is a third way to change the contents, by using the numeric keypad. For example, to select sequence number 45, I type 4, then 5, then enter. Now, the MPC60 stands ready to play sequence number 45. Whenever you change the contents of a numeric data field using the numeric keypad, you must also type enter after you type the numbers. So far, I've demonstrated how to change the sequence number. This is because the cursor is located in the sequence number field. However, if I move the cursor to any other field and use the data control, plus and minus keys, or the numeric keypad, the contents of the newly selected field will change. So the basic rule is, to change any parameter displayed on the screen, move the cursor to it and enter the new data. Also, each of the various command keys presents a different screen, and each of these screens has its own set of unique data fields. For example, here's the disk key, the tempo screen, the erase screen, the timing correct screen, and then back to the main screen. In addition to data fields containing numbers, there is another type of data field called a choice field. Instead of numbers, a choice field displays a pre-programmed word or phrase. While the cursor is in one of these fields, turning the data control selects, with each successive notch, a new word or phrase from a pre-programmed list of choices. For example, let's go to the timing correct screen, where the cursor is currently resting in the note value field. At the cursor is the phrase 16th note. Now if I turn the data control one notch to the right, the field's contents change to 16th note triplets. By turning the data control either left or right, I can select one of 7 different choices, because this choice field happens to have 7 pre-programmed choices. However, each choice field has a different number of choices. For example, the shift timing field, directly below, has only 2 choices, earlier and later. The plus and minus keys may also be used in choice fields, but the numeric keypad has no effect. These are the main types of data fields. There are some exceptions, and I will explain those in further sections. There are 2 additional things to learn in order to get around on the MPC60, the 4 soft keys and the help key. The 4 soft keys are located at the top of the commands section, labeled soft key 1 through soft key 4. The functions of these 4 keys change depending on what is currently displayed on the LCD screen. Notice that the words soft key 1 through soft key 4 are printed just below the LCD screen, enclosed in angle brackets. And above this, in the bottom line of the LCD, are 4 short phrases, also enclosed in angle brackets. These 4 phrases indicate the functions of the 4 soft keys while the play record screen is showing. However, if I press the erase key, notice that the bottom line has changed. Now the 4 soft keys have 4 different functions, this time related to the erase function. Before we proceed, let's return to the play record screen by pressing the main screen key. The other special key I mentioned is the help key. When you press and hold the help key, a full paragraph of explanation about the function you're currently using will appear on the screen, as long as you hold help. For example, with the cursor in the sequence number field, I'll press and hold help. The screen now shows information about selecting the sequence number. Now, I'll release help and move the cursor one position to the right to the sequence name field. Now when I press help, the screen explains how to change the sequence name. For every field of every screen in the MPC60, there's a different paragraph of help information. It's like having a built-in electronic reference manual. Now that we've covered the basics of entering data, let's move on to playing the drum pads and the associated keys in the area of the pads. The drum pads are dynamic. The harder I play them, the louder they will sound. Notice that when I play repeated strikes of a single drum, such as the crash cymbal, they all play simultaneously. They don't cut each other off. It's possible to defeat the dynamics of the pads by pressing the full level key. Now they all play at full dynamic level regardless of how hard I strike the pads. To return to normal dynamics, press the full level key once again. It's also possible to play a single drum at 16 fixed dynamic levels using the 16 levels key. To do this, I first play the drum I want to use this effect on. For example, I'll use the snare 1 pad, then I press the 16 levels key. Now, all 16 pads play the snare drum, but at 16 different fixed dynamic levels, from 1 to 16. To return to normal operation, I press the 16 levels key once again. The MPC-60 can hold up to 32 different drums in memory at one time. However, there are only 16 play pads. To play the second 16 drums, I press the Bank 2 key. Currently, the second 16 drums contain 16 different bass guitar pitches, but there could be 16 additional drums, or 16 percussion, or 16 sound effects, etc. The names of the first 16 drums are printed above and to the left of each pad. The names of the second 16 drums are drum 1 through drum 16, indicated by the number above and to the right of each pad. To return to the first 16 drums, I press the Bank 2 key once again. Now the hi-hat is a special case. Just as the decay time of a real hi-hat cymbal is controlled by how hard you press on the hi-hat pedal, the decay time of the hi-hat in the MPC-60 is controlled by the setting of the hi-hat decay slider. Notice that in addition to changing the decay time of the hi-hat, the sound of the hi-hat also changes. This is because as I move the slider, I'm automatically switching between 3 different hi-hat sounds. One for the closed hi-hat, one for a slightly open hi-hat, and one for a fully open hi-hat. The final key in this section is the hi-hat after key. Normally, the hi-hat slider only has an effect on hi-hat notes as you play them. It doesn't affect hi-hats which play in sequences. However, if you press the after key and the light goes on, the slider will also affect hi-hats which are playing back in sequences. Now let's learn how to adjust the stereo drum mixer. First, I'll press the drum mix key. The LCD screen shows a graphic simulation of a 16-channel mixer with 16 volume sliders and 16 rotary pan controls. To adjust the volume of a drum, first press that drum's pad, and the small triangle-shaped pointer will point to that drum in the mixer. Now, turning the data control will move that drum slider up or down. To adjust the pan position of the same drum, press the cursor up key, and the small triangle now points upwards. Now, when I turn the data control, the position of the small graphic pan knob changes. You see it there on the snare 1 drum. To adjust the volume and pan positions of the second bank of 16 drums, press the Bank 2 key. Next, we're going to learn how to play the preset sequences which we loaded in from the startup disk. First, make sure that the play record screen is showing. If it isn't, press the main screen key. Also, move the cursor to the sequence number field in the upper left corner and select sequence 1 if it isn't already selected. Now, find the play start key in the play record section in the lower right corner of the front panel and press it. We're now playing sequence number 1. To play sequence number 2, I change the contents of the sequence number field to 2 by rotating the data control, and then I'll press play start again. Finally, here's how to adjust the playing tempo. Move the cursor 2 positions to the right to the tempo field, and enter the desired new tempo. This can be done either while playing or stopped. So what I'll do now is to play this sequence and change the tempo as I'm playing it. To use this key to set the tempo, simply tap the key twice in the time of 2 quarter notes at the desired new tempo. Instantly after the second tap, the tempo field is automatically updated to the new tempo you have just tapped. Tap tempo is very handy if you can play the tempo but don't know the number. The tempo can be entered in this way both while stopped and while playing. There are many other tempo features, including displaying the tempo in frames per beat and inserting mid-sequence tempo changes, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to send you to your manual to learn about them, because we are short on time. That's it. We've come to the end of Section 2, the basics. In the next section, we'll learn how to record sequences, so I'll meet you there. Welcome to Section 3, entitled Recording Sequences. To start off, I'm going to describe to you how sequences, tracks, and MIDI channels are organized. The MPC-60 can hold up to 99 sequences in memory at once. However, only one sequence may play at one time. A sequence can be thought of as a segment of multitrack tape of a predetermined length, except that it may be also set to repeat in a loop. For example, a sequence could be a repeating 2-bar drum pattern, or a 4-bar bass pattern, or it could be a 200-bar song consisting of drums, bass, and 50 tracks of keyboard data with time signature changes and tempo changes. Now, each of the 99 sequences has its own set of 99 tracks, which actually contain all of the drum and keyboard notes and other information. All of these tracks play simultaneously, just like the tracks on a multi-track tape recorder. For example, track 1 might contain the drums, track 2 the bass, track 3 the piano part, track 4 the horns, etc. Now, in order for the notes in a track to play an external synthesizer, the track must be assigned to send out its notes through one of the 16 MIDI channels. So each track has a MIDI output channel assignment. Now let's learn how to record a sequence. First, we'll record a track of drums, then we'll add some keyboard parts. First, I'll need to select an empty sequence. Now, since I've loaded in the preset sequences from disk, I'll select one of the higher numbered empty sequences, such as number 80. To select sequence 80, I type 80 and enter. Now I set the track field to 1 and the MIDI field to 16. This means that I'll be recording on track 1, and track 1 is set to play through MIDI channel 16. I've selected channel 16 because I want to record a drums track, and the MPC-60's drums receive their notes on MIDI channel 16. Just like an external synthesizer, the internal drums must receive data on one of the 16 MIDI channels, and normally channel 16 is used. So if you ever want to record a drums track, just set the MIDI field to 16. The other 15 MIDI channels are used to play external MIDI synthesizers. If we don't set the time signature or number of bars, 2 bars of 4/4 will be automatically selected, and the 2 bars will be automatically set to repeat in a loop when played. Let's use that format for now. To start recording, I'll hold down the overdub key and press play start. You can hear a metronome playing quarter notes with a louder click at the start of each of the 2 bars. I'll record some drums now in time to the metronome. Because the sequence was automatically set to repeat in a loop, the drums I recorded played back when the sequence looped around. Notice also that I was able to continue adding more drums on each loop. Notice further that any timing errors I made were instantly corrected when the notes played back. The timing correct feature is automatically set to correct timing errors by moving all notes to the nearest 16th note. This can be changed. I'll explain how a little bit later. Now I'm going to overdub a 16th note hi-hat part into this track. However, instead of playing each 16th note, I'm going to use the note repeat feature. I enter overdub mode, then I hold both the timing correct key and the hi-hat pad simultaneously, varying the pressure on the hi-hat pad as the sequence plays. Watch. This useful feature of the timing correct key makes it very easy to record repeating notes. It is also possible to change the note value of the repeat. For example, 32nd note triplets is very useful for recording snare drum rolls, explained further a little later on. If I wanted to erase only one or two of my notes, there's a very easy way to do this. While overdubbing, I hold the erase key and the drum pad I want to erase simultaneously, and all occurrences of that drum will be erased from the sequence during the time that both are held. Watch. I just erased two of the snare drums there. I can also use that same erase key to quickly erase all occurrences of a drum in that sequence. To do this, I press erase while the sequence is stopped. Then I press the drum to be erased. Then I press soft key 1, which, as you can see currently, has the assigned function of erase it. Snares are gone. There are many other features of the erase key, including the ability to select only selected types of MIDI events. Also, all erase modes work in the same way for both drums and keyboard tracks. See your manual for details. If I don't like what I've just recorded, I can erase it and record over it this time by using the record key, which erases existing notes as you record the new ones, just like a tape recorder. To do this, I hold record and press play start. Now, I could add additional tracks of drums, but let's go a few steps farther and add some keyboard parts to our sequence. For this demonstration, I'll use an Akai MX73 master keyboard and one Akai S900 sampler. Now, we actually have three S900s here, but I'm only going to use one containing three sounds, a bass sound, a string sound, and a solo sound on MIDI channels 1, 2, and 3, respectively. Before we start, let's quickly double our 2-bar sequence into a 4-bar sequence. To do this, I'll use the Copy All Tracks feature accessed by pressing the Edit key. This feature allows me to copy a region of bars, including all tracks, from one section of the sequence and insert it into another position. In this case, I'll copy the entire 2-bar sequence and insert the copy onto the end of the sequence, making a 4-bar drum sequence. To perform the copy, I'll press soft key 1, execute. This feature is explained in detail in the manual. Wait! We need one more thing, a keyboard player. So at this time, I'd like to introduce a roomer in his own time, a legend in his own room, Mr. Billy Coven.
Roger! I got here as fast as I could.
We already have our drum track. To add a bass part, I'll select track 2 and set the MIDI field to 1 so that track 2 plays the bass sound. But before I enter overdub mode, I'm going to turn on the count-in feature. Now when I start recording or overdubbing, 1 bar of metronome clicks will play before the sequence starts playing. This gives me time to adjust to the tempo. Also, for this bass track, I'm going to use the note repeat feature to automatically repeat the keyboard notes at 16th note intervals. And now, Billy will overdub the bass part. Okay, at this point, I'm going to ask Billy to overdub a wrong note. Whoops! Billy played a bad note. We could erase it by using the real-time method we used in recording the drums, holding the erase key and the note on the keyboard which we want to remove while the sequence is in overdub mode. But instead, I'm going to show you how to remove a note visually on the screen by using the Step Edit feature. First, I'll play the sequence until I hear the bad note. There it is. Now I press Step Edit. The notes which exist at this position in the sequence are displayed on the screen and played, with each note parameter in a separate field: pitch, velocity, release velocity, and duration. Now I'll press the single arrow rewind key in the play record section of the panel, which will step the sequence position backwards 1/16th note at a time until I find the bad note. There it is. I could change any of its fields, but instead I'm going to delete it. Soft key. Now, when I play the sequence back, the bad note disappears. I'll talk more about the Step Edit function a little later on. Our next overdub will be a string part. I'll select track 3 and set it to channel 2 to play the string sound. And now, Billy will overdub the string sound. For our final part, let's overdub a solo part on track 4. I'll select track 4, set its MIDI channel to 3 to play the solo overdub mode. Billy? And that's how easy it is to create a sequence. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you, Roger. What a guy. What a guy.
You may have noticed that while we were recording and playing sequences, the bar and time fields on the play record screen were constantly changing. These fields are like the tape counter on a tape recorder. They indicate the current position within the sequence. The bar field displays it in musical terms as a 3-part number separated by periods. The first part is the bar number. The second part is the beat number, which in 4/4 time is the quarter note within the bar. The third part is the clock number, which is a precision counter with 96 parts to each quarter note. Now the time field also shows the current position within the sequence, but in terms of elapsed time. In this case, the 4 parts of the field are hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. We've explained only a few of the data fields in the play record screen. There are others: the sequence name, track name, MIDI channel name, second MIDI output assignment, the track on-off field, and the track on-off and solo on-off soft keys. These are all explained in detail in your manual. For our demonstration, we were using a simple 4-bar loop sequence, but for longer sequences, you would also use the rewind and fast-forward keys to move around to different locations within your sequence. The double arrow keys are used to rewind or fast-forward 1 bar through the sequence. The single arrow keys do the same, except they move only 1/16th note. And the locate key allows you to instantly jump to bars within the sequence. See your manual to learn more about locate. Also, in addition to the play start key, which always plays the sequence from the start, the play key can be used to play the sequence from the current position displayed in the bar and time fields. By using all of these keys together in a tape recorder-like fashion, you can really create sequences fast. For example, locate to bar 89, punch in by pressing record and play, rewind to bar 80, beat 3, overdub a fill by pressing overdub and play, then play it all from the start by pressing play start. And that's how to record sequences. Now I'd like to talk more about the timing correct feature. The timing correct feature has 4 main uses. 1, it can instantly correct timing errors made while recording, as it was doing during our demonstration. 2, it can add a shuffle or swing rhythm to your sequences. 3, it can shift the timing of a track earlier or later in relation to other tracks to compensate for slow synthesizer attacks or any electronic delays which a synthesizer might add. And 4, it can be used to assist in the playing of repeated notes, such as rolls or repeating 16th notes. To begin, let's look at the timing correct screen. To do this, I press the timing correct key. Notice the field labeled note value, and notice that the current value of the field is 16th note. This means that when the record mode is entered, all new notes will be automatically moved to the nearest 16th note. This is how the MPC60 corrects timing errors. This data field is a choice field and has 7 options: 8th notes, 8th note triplets, 16th notes, 16th note triplets, 32nd notes, 32nd note triplets, and off, which turns timing correction off. The next field to the right is labeled shuffle. The shuffle feature works in conjunction with the timing correction feature. The difference is that instead of moving your notes onto perfect 16th notes, it moves them onto shuffled or swing time 16th notes. The range is from 50% for no shuffle effect, or perfectly even 16th notes, to 75% for the maximum effect. In practical application, a setting of 52% to 58% is very useful to remove the stiffness from 16th notes that's normally associated with drum machines. The shuffle setting also operates on 8th notes, adding a shuffle effect to the 8th notes instead of the 16th notes. However, shuffle has no effect at all if the note value is set to anything other than 16th or 8th notes. The next feature associated with timing correction is called shift timing. In addition to moving your notes to either perfectly straight or shuffled 16th notes, shift timing moves your notes either earlier or later by a small amount. This is very useful to compensate for the slow attack of a synthesizer sound or to correct for general electronic delays associated with some synthesizers or samplers. There's one last feature of timing correction called note repeat, which I demonstrated earlier. Note repeat is used as an aid in recording repeated notes such as rolls or repeated 16th notes. To use note repeat, enter overdub mode, then simultaneously hold the timing correct key and the drum pad or keyboard key to be recorded. The note value of the repeated notes is determined by the note value field. One interesting use of this feature is to record drum rolls. To do this, set the note value field to 32nd note triplets, then hold both the timing correct key and the snare pad while overdubbing to record a snare roll. So far, I've demonstrated all of the timing correct features on drums, but all of these features operate in exactly the same way on keyboard tracks. The note repeat feature even uses pressure-sensitive keyboards to vary the dynamics in the same way we varied the pressure on the hi-hat pad. And this concludes Section 3, Recording Sequences. Stay tuned for Section 4, Editing Sequences. Welcome to Section 4 of our video manual, Editing Sequences. In this section, you'll get a brief introduction to the Edit key, the Step Edit key, the Edit Loop key, and the Transpose key. First, let's explore the Edit key. When I press it, this menu appears, showing all the various editing commands. Pressing Option 1, Time Signature, Number of Bars, Ending Status, causes this screen to be displayed. The section of the screen labeled Ending Status is used to select what happens when the sequence plays all the way to its end. There are 2 options, Stop at End and Loop to Bar Number. If set to Stop at End, the sequence stops when it plays to the end. If set to Loop to Bar Number, the sequence immediately loops back to the bar in the bar number field directly to the right. The lower section of the screen displays the time signature and number of bars of the active sequence. For example, for a sequence containing 2 bars of 4/4 time, as this sequence does, the screen will show bar 1 through 3, 4/4, meaning that the time signature is 4/4 time from bar 1 to the start of bar 3, meaning bars 1 and 2 inclusive. If there are any time signature changes, each one is listed separately with the number of bars for each, 2 changes per line. The second option from the Edit menu is Create New Time Signature, Number of Bars. This feature is used to create a completely new format of time signature and number of bars for the active sequence. To create a new format, enter the data into the fields, the number of bars, and the time signature, and press the Execute soft key to actually create it. The next two options from the Edit menu are Insert Blank Bars and Delete Bars. Insert Bars allows you to insert some blank bars of any time signature into your sequence at any point. Delete Bars allows you to delete any bars from the sequence. There are three separate functions for copying sequence data: copy all tracks, copy merge a track, and copy one sequence to another. Copy all tracks makes a copy of a section of the sequence, including all tracks, and inserts it at another point in the sequence. Copy merge a track is used to copy a region of a single track to another area of the same or another sequence. Further, it can either replace the notes in the area it is being copied to or merge with them. Typical uses of this function are copying a track to another track and merging two tracks together. The third form of copy one sequence to another, is very simple. It makes a perfect copy of one sequence into another sequence, completely replacing the second sequence's contents. The last option in the Edit menu, option 8, is Convert Song to Sequence. This will be discussed later in the Song section. The next editing function, the Step Edit key, is one of the most powerful functions in the MPC60. It displays parameters in each event at the current sequence position, allowing you to edit them by changing. Allows those who find real-time recording difficult to record their sequences one note at a time while stopped. Basically, Step Edit works like this. When you press the Step Edit key, all events which exist at the current sequence position are displayed on the screen in numeric form, one event per line, with up to 4 lines. Each event has its own data fields. For example, a note event, shown on the screen here, has 4 fields: the note pitch, the velocity, the release velocity, and the duration. But each type of MIDI event has its own unique data fields depending on what that event does. To edit a parameter of a particular event, move the cursor to the desired field and change it. To view events at different sequence positions, use the rewind and fast forward keys just as you would from the play record screen. As you move to the new position, the events at that position are displayed on the screen and played. You can delete an event, insert a new event, and lots more. But the real power comes in being able to instantly go in and out of Step Edit mode while recording. The next feature I'd like to talk about is the Edit Loop key. This allows you to take a region of bars from within a sequence and repeat it in a loop while overdubbing to make the process of overdubbing on this region much faster. For example, let's say I had an 8-bar sequence and I wanted to overdub a 2-bar drum fill on bars 7 and 8. I could use Edit Loop to repeat bars 7 and 8 in a loop while I overdub the fill. When I'm finished, I turn the Edit Loop off, and I now have my drum fill on bars 7 and 8. The last feature in this section is the Transpose key. This feature allows you to transpose the pitch of a keyboard sequence up or down by any amount. While this transpose screen is showing, pressing any key above middle C transposes up by an amount equal to the distance from middle C. Pressing a lower key than middle C works in the same way for transposing down. To learn more about the transpose feature, including how to permanently transpose a region of a sequence, read this section in your manual. You have now completed Section 4, Editing Sequences. Stay tuned for Section 5, Song Mode. Welcome to Section 5, Song Mode. There are two in the MPC60. One is to record all the parts of a song into one long sequence. The copy functions to copy parts from one section to another, and fast-forwarding, rewinding, and punching in to various sections of the sequence to add the finishing touches, like a tape recorder. The other way is to use the Song Mode feature. Song Mode works like this. A list of sentences is entered into the Song Mode screen, and when play is pressed, they play back in the order they were entered, one after another. This allows you to create the basic structure of a song very quickly from existing short sequences. This is the Song Mode screen. As I mentioned before, a song is a list of sequences played one after another. In the MPC60, there are 20 separate songs, and each song is a list of 256 steps. Now, each step contains 2 pieces of information: the sequence number which will play at that step, and the number of times it will repeat before proceeding to the next step. Creating a song is simple. Enter for each step the desired sequence number and the number of repetitions you want it to play at that step using the sequence and reps fields. To move from step to step, use the step +1 and step -1 soft keys, or just change the value in the contents of the step number field. As you change the step number, each of the fields in the middle section of the screen change to display the contents of the newly selected step. After you've entered all the steps in your song, select one step higher than the last step in the song and enter a 0 in the reps field to indicate the end of the song. Finally, use the end and loop step fields to set whether your song stops or loops back to an early step once it reaches its end. And your song is complete. In song mode, the rewind, fast forward, and locate keys still work, but they operate on the active song instead of the active sequence. Also, the bar and time fields indicate the position within the song instead of within the sequence. As I mentioned earlier, song mode is very useful for quickly creating the basic structure of a song. However, in more complex songs, detailed editing can be very cumbersome because you don't have the same recording and editing flexibility you have in normal sequence recording. If you feel you've reached the limits of song mode, try using the Convert Song to Sequence feature, accessed by pressing the Edit key. This feature takes the song you've created and copies every note of each sequence in the song into one long sequence for easier detail editing. See your manual for more details about using this feature. And that's the end of Section 5, Song Mode. The next section, Section 6, deals with sampling and editing of drum sounds. Welcome to Section 6, Sampling and Editing Drum Sounds. The MPC-60 has a built-in 16-voice drum sampler using the special enhanced 12-bit encoding format. This special format produces far less sampling noise than other 12-bit systems without affecting its 18 kHz frequency response. In this section, I'm going to introduce you to sampling and editing sounds in the MPC-60. All of these features are accessed by pressing the Sounds key, which causes this menu to appear on the screen. 9 options are presented. The first one is View Current Sounds, Double Play Mode. This screen has 2 functions. The first function tells you the names and sizes of each of the sounds which are currently loaded into memory. Before we proceed, I'd like to explain how sounds are organized in memory. The MPC-60 may hold up to 32 sounds in memory at one time, and each may be any length as long as the total combined length does not exceed the total sampling time of 13.1 seconds or 26.2 seconds if your machine has the sound memory expansion option. The only sampling rate is 40 kHz and cannot be changed. Each of the sounds in memory is assigned to one of the front panel drum pads, 16 in bank 1 and 16 in bank 2, for a total of 32 sounds. To view the currently assigned sounds, first select one of the drum pads in the drum field using the data control. However, there is one special case. As I explained earlier, the hi-hat plays one of 3 different sounds depending on the setting of the hi-hat decay control. So there are actually 3 different entries for the hi-hat in the drum field. The hi-hat closed, hi-hat medium, and hi-hat open. Each time the contents of the drum field is changed, the name and size fields change to show the name and size of the sound currently loaded into the displayed drum. The name is 16 characters long and may be changed in the same way as changing the sequence name. The size shows the length of the sound in seconds. The last field in this section, free, displays the amount of time in seconds which is currently unused and therefore available for either sampling new sounds or loading new sounds from disk. The second section in this screen is called Double Play Mode. This feature allows you to assign one drum to automatically play a second drum whenever the first one plays. This could be used, for example, to fatten the snare sound by causing a tom to play whenever the snare plays. The second option from the Sounds menu is called Sample New Sound. To sample a new sound, I first connect my sound source to the Record In jack on the rear panel. Then I select Option 2, Sample New Sound, from the Sounds menu. Now before I can sample, this first screen requires me to select which of the drum pads I want to assign the new sound to. As the screen warns, when I press the Proceed soft key, any existing sound assigned to that drum will be erased. Also, since the sequence memory is used as a temporary holding area for new samples, all sequence memory will also be erased. Once I press the Proceed soft key, the actual sampling screen appears. So I'll select the drum I want to record into. In this case, I'll select drum 16, and I press Proceed. To sample a new sound, I first set each of the fields, then I press the Ready soft key. And sampling actually starts once the incoming signal exceeds a preset threshold level set in the Threshold field. Please look to your manual for a detailed explanation of each of the fields, but there are two worth mentioning here. First, the Pre-Record field allows you to set a small amount of time which will be recorded before the threshold is exceeded. This ensures that even the first part of the sound, before the threshold is reached, will be recorded. Second, the Fade Out field sets an amount of time over which the signal will be automatically faded down before it reaches the end of the sampling time. This ensures that the sample will fade down to silence just as sampling stops. The third option in the Sounds menu, Edit a Sound, is used to edit an existing sound in memory. The parameters which may be edited include the start time, the end time, the fade-out time, and the 16-character sound name. The fourth option from the Sounds menu, Tune Drums, is used to set the tunings for each of the 32 drums. Press 4 to select this option. To tune a specific drum, either move the cursor to that drum's pad once, then turn the data control. This will tune the drum either up or down, depending on whether the field is set to plus or minus. To minus or back again, press the plus-minus soft key. The next option in the Sounds menu is Echo Mixer. Type 5 from the Sounds menu to select this option. Now the Echo Mixer is a very novel feature. It's a 32-input mono drum mixer which exists in addition to the stereo drum mixer and is used to create an echo send mix for an external digital reverb. To adjust the setting, use the same method as for adjusting the stereo mixer. Press a drum pad and turn the data control. As with the stereo mixer, to adjust the second bank of 16 drums, press the Bank 2 key. The output of this mixer is the Echo Mix Out jack on the rear panel. There are also two Echo Return input jacks, which feed into the stereo mix. Although this mixer is intended to be used as an echo mixer, it could also be used as an auxiliary mono drum mix. The sixth option in the Sounds menu is Assignable Mix Outputs. This screen is used to assign which drums play from each of the 8 Assignable Mix Output jacks on the rear panel. Each of the 8 outputs may be assigned to output any combination of the 32 drums. So these are mix outputs, not individual voice outputs. The next 3 options in the Sounds menu are MIDI Sample Dump, Mixer Modes Hi-Hat Decay Thresholds, and Audio Trigger. As these are lesser used features, please read your manual to learn how to use them. And we have finally come to the end of Section 6, Sampling and Editing Drum Sounds, and how to save to and load from the disk. Welcome to Section 7, Loading from Disk. Like all samplers and all filters, the MPC-60 loses all sounds and sequences when the power is turned off. Because of this, it is important to always save your sounds and sequences to the disk before powering down. And it's also a good idea to periodically save your work to disk, just in case of an accidental power loss. To remind you to save to disk, the small light above the disk key will go on whenever you record or edit a sequence or sound. If you save to disk whatever you've changed, it'll go off again. The disk drive uses commonly available 3.5-inch double-sided double-density disks. Don't use single-sided disks. Both sounds and sequences can be stored to disk. When stored onto the disk, they are called files. To view the disk options, press the disk key. There are 6 options in the disk menu. As you can see, the first 4 options are for saving each of the 4 different types of files to disk. A single sequence, all sequences and songs, a single sound, and all sounds. To save a single sequence to disk, place the disk in the drive and press 1. Saving a single sequence file is simple. Just select the sequence number you want to save and press the Save It to Disk soft key. The screen shows the size of the sequence and the amount of free space on the disk, so you can see if there's enough room to fit it on the disk. Saving the other 3 types of files is similar, so we'll skip over them. See your manual for detailed instructions. There is only one selection in the disk menu for loading files, option 5. It is also used for erasing, viewing, and renaming files. As you turn the data control, each of the files on the disk you are using will appear on the screen, one at a time, in alphabetical order, in the File field. Notice that in addition to the 8-character file name, there is a period and 3 additional letters. This is called the file extension and is used to identify the displayed file as one of the 4 file types. The 4 extensions are .seq for single sequence files, .all for files containing all sequences and songs, .snd for files containing a single sound, and .set for files containing all 32 sounds. To load the selected file, just press the Load It soft key, and additional screens will be displayed to guide you through loading the file. For example, if it's a sequence file, you'll be asked which sequence number to load it into. If it's a sound file, you'll be asked which drum to load it into. To erase or rename the selected file, press either the Erase It or Rename It soft keys, and further screens will appear to guide you through these options. The last option in the disk menu, number 6, is used to format new disks. Before you can use a new disk, you must first use this function to prepare the disk for use in the MPC60. And that concludes the disk section of our video manual. Welcome to Section 8. In this last section of our video manual, I'll tell you very briefly about syncing to tape and other external sequencing devices, and also about some of the miscellaneous MIDI functions. These topics are explained in detail in your manual. The sync section of the MPC60 is very powerful. For example, it can sync to 7 different types of sync signals: SEMPTI, MIDI clock song position pointer, MIDI timecode, FSK, pulse sync, and it'll even sync to any audio signal playing quarter notes. When using SEMPTI, the MPC60 can play in perfect sync even if the tape is played from the middle of the song. It automatically finds the correct location and starts playing in sync. This is sometimes called SEMPTI chase. This feature also works when syncing to MIDI song position pointer and MIDI timecode, which is basically SEMPTI encoded over MIDI. All parameters related to sync are presented in the sync screen. To view the sync screen, press the Tempo Sync key, then press the Sync Screen soft key. In your manual are step-by-step instructions on how to sync to each of the different types of sync signals. The last key I'll tell you about is the MIDI key. From this screen, you can do the following things. You can assign the 4 MIDI output jacks. You can play the internal drums from an external MIDI keyboard and select which notes play which drums. You can play an external MIDI synthesizer from the internal drums and select which drums play which MIDI notes. Also, you can filter out certain MIDI events from the incoming keyboard data before recording it into sequences. You can set the MIDI channel which the internal drums play from. And finally, you can select whether or not the incoming keyboard notes are sent to the MIDI output as they... Well, we finally finished. In conclusion, I'd like to thank you for buying the MPC60, and I hope you enjoy using it as much as we enjoyed creating it. Thank you, and goodbye.